Roll Tide! And welcome to Crimson Tide Rewind, live from Baumhower's Victory Grille in Vestavia Hills, presented by the Alabama Department of Public Health, who reminds Alabama, don't wait, vaccinate. Roll Tide, hello again, everybody. This is Roger Hoover. Glad to welcome you to Baumhower's alongside former Alabama linebacker Cory Reamer. And Cory, we get to talk about not just a win, but a shutout.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good. First one, not the first one, but one we hadn't seen in a while. It's welcome to see that coming off of the last 3 weeks that we've had. It's been tough, especially from the defensive side, and but it was a good game. It started off a little bit slow on the offensive side, but finished strong and getting the starters back in right there at the end of the ball game to ensure that shutout. It was I'm sure that was exciting for all those defensive guys. It's just sometimes even though it didn't mean anything in terms of the final score of the game, but for a defense to give the effort to practice and to be able to see that zero, that goose egg, it's always a goal. Whenever we had all the goals after each game, we always came in and evaluated how we did. One of them was always like, let's see if we can pitch shutouts. And I remember in 2009 we had a number of them, and it's something that you strive for. And there's always going to be points that get put up. But if your goal is to have zero under their name, that's usually you're going to win a lot of ball games that way. So good for this defense to get out there and played really well, I thought, especially with some key guys that were out there that were not out there, especially with Keon Sabb being hurt. But I felt like it's the guys that were stepping in and playing in those roles did a really phenomenal job. And it seems like we played extremely physical defense, and it was fun to watch. It's been so far this season, it seems like we've been taking the hits, and it seemed like on both sides of the ball that we were really the ones that were throwing the punches, and it was a fun game for us to watch. Missouri was a team that's been a little bit beaten up, but we took advantage of it and played like we were supposed to and won that ball game handily.
Really was a lot of fun, and of course we always have the Yay Alabama booth cam streaming live, and we always have the highlights come out on Sunday or Monday at UA_CTSN, and really the top highlight is Damian Square. You can't even see him because it is the booth cam. He's down in the field, of course, but he was so excited after seeing the starters come back in, getting that goal line stand to make sure as a shutout. Like you mentioned, that's something as a point of pride this defense can carry forward the rest of the year. Yeah,
you don't get as many, especially with the offenses that you face today. It's really hard to put a goose egg up there from a defensive standpoint. You take a lot of pride of shutting any team out, especially one that has a lot of offensive firepower and has put up a lot of points this year. To go out there and to see them lay down and not get anything on the scoreboard is phenomenal. I mean, it's you don't think that it means that much, but I guarantee you, a lot of people watching that game are probably like, do those guys, are they mad that they've got to put their helmets back on and go back in there at the end of the game? No, I guarantee you they were pumped to go in there to try to ensure that shutout. And that was one thing Coach Saban always talked about when the backups would come into play. Hey, you guys better be ready and you better step up, because it means a lot for those starters watching that second team go out there and perform. You better play to the same level that we've played for the entire game, and it meant a lot for the starters to get it. Don't let these guys score, because then your starters are going to be mad at you, and you're going to be they're going to let you know that it's because of you. So seeing those guys come back on the field and getting that done was pretty incredible.
Fun day in Tuscaloosa, a homecoming win for the Crimson Tide. Again, the final score, Alabama 34 and Missouri nothing. We're going to talk about this ball game for the next hour. We invite your phone calls. If you'd like to join us, give us a call at 877-202-BAMA. That's 877-202-2262. We're just getting started with Crimson Tide Rewind. This is the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield. A reminder, you can keep up with everything Alabama with the Alabama Crimson Tide mobile app, presented by Cadence Bank. It's available at the App Store and Google Play. Download the Alabama Crimson Tide mobile app now for free. We're talking about Alabama's win against Missouri and where the Crimson Tide stand at the end of October, getting ready for November. And we will go to the phones. Again, you can join us on the show tonight by giving us a call at 877-202-BAMA. And our first caller this evening comes to us from Pace, Florida. Our good friend Parker joins us now. Roll Tide, Parker.
Roll Tide, Roger. Roll Tide, Cory. How are y'all doing tonight?
Doing good, man. How about you?
Doing great. So going into this bye week, I think it's going to be good to get our guys healthy. But going in night game, Tiger Stadium, I mean, every year I always want to beat LSU. What are going to be some of the keys going into that? going into that big 6:30 nighttime game, Tiger Stadium. I'm so ready for it. Roll Tide, y'all.
Yeah, appreciate it, Parker. I think the first thing you mentioned is definitely going to be the key for us is trying to get back healthy. I think Jalen looked a little bit better this week, but you can still tell that he's not 100% healthy. It just seems like he's battling with some, maybe nothing major, but something that's throwing him off his game a little bit. He did take off and run a little bit more in this game, but you can see sometimes when he's in the pocket, he's throwing off his back foot. He's not delivering the football with the same zip and precision that he had earlier in the season. But, if you watched any of that Texas A&M LSU game, it looked like LSU had that game in hand going into halftime. And then Texas A&M turns around and switches up the game plan and brings a different quarterback in and really gave LSU a lot of fits with their mobile quarterback. And Jalen Milroe is a better runner than that guy from Texas A&M. So I imagine LSU is going to be preparing heavily for a lot of Jalen Milroe run. I'm hoping that the passing game continues to improve and becomes, he had a good game. The accuracy it felt like we had a lot of missed opportunities on Saturday from Jalen Milroe. And hopefully we get some of those things cleaned up. But I think a lot of it has to do with just not feeling 100%, not feeling like he can really turn and throw that football off his front foot. He's kind of leaning back a little bit, missing some of his targets, but still had a good day overall for sure.
And really, he took care of the football. Yes, there were a couple of sacks, a couple of tough moments like that, but no interceptions, no turnovers. That was really key. Yeah,
that was a stat that kind of was going on every single game. Finally broke that streak of turnovers. And when you're +3 in the turnover margin, you double up with the opposing team in total yardage. It's a really good recipe for success whoever you're playing. So hopefully we can do the same thing against LSU. I think with what we saw from Missouri, they, in the first half, they seemed to be giving us a little bit of fits. We were missing some opportunities, but we ended up turning it on and putting up a lot of points, 34 points against them in the second half total. It was, LSU is going to be a much tougher test. We know that. This is a night game in Baton Rouge. We know what this rivalry has meant over the last, almost 2 decades and what it's turned into. I mean, before they did away with the divisions, this was usually the game that decided the West. And I don't think it's lost any of its luster, especially now that you got a 12-team playoff. Both teams have 2 losses, so it is a do-or-die situation for both of these teams. They've got to come out with a win, and we've got to be ready to go, playing in a tough road environment. A lot of the communication issues that we've seen in terms of false starts or getting the ball snapped in time, no delay of games. We still had a few times this weekend where we shot ourselves in the foot. We cleaned up a lot of those things, but this is going to be easily one of the toughest tests that we've had so far this season.
So much on the line coming up on November 9th when Alabama takes on LSU in Baton Rouge. We'll preview that game, keep talking about this win against Missouri when we come back. Again, if you'd like to join us, give us a call at 877-202-BAMA. Kenny, hang on through the break. We'll get to you next. This is the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
And the quarterback getting the snap, looking, firing downfield. That's going to be picked off. Malachi Moore, 40, 45, cuts back left side, gets into Mizzou territory, going down the sideline, 40, and knocked out of bounds around the 38-yard line. First down, Alabama. Malachi Moore, the pick out of Hewitt-Trussville High School.
Chris Stewart on the call. A Malachi Moore's interception that helped Alabama to a shutout win over Mizzou, 34-0. J&J Apparel, your trusted source for Bama gear. New Alabama hats, t-shirts, and polos arriving daily. Visit online at jnjapparel.net, or you can shop their retail store at 1926 University Boulevard in downtown Tuscaloosa. RTR with J&J. We'll go back to the phones here on Crimson Tide Rewind. Next, we'll go to Montgomery, where Kenny joins us now. Roll Tide, Kenny.
Roll Tide, guys. What a great weekend that was, watching the team come out and rebound like that after the tough loss against Tennessee. I don't really have a question. I just wanted to call in and say Roll Tide and hat tip towards the coaching staff that's been getting beat up here lately. That's all I got, guys. Y'all have a great one.
Yeah, appreciate it, Kenny. Yeah, it definitely has. It's tough when you got expectations, with this program the way that it's been performing over the last 17 years. And Coach DeBoer, I think, is doing a great job in terms of just trying to figure out what this team is. We talked about it last week, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago, of just the timing of Coach Saban retiring. The transfer portal's closed. Alabama's roster opens up for everybody else to be able to come and try to pick off some of these players, and they're not able to, we didn't have the same ability to go out there and find replacements for those guys that we lost. And, except for other teams whose head coaches also got fired. And so, I think that there's got to be some grace it's given. This is a whole new system from both sides, offense, defense, the whole way the program is run with NIL and recruiting and the way that it is, the transfer portal, and then also this new 12-team playoff. It's opened up a lot of parity across college football. Players are going places that we hadn't seen them go in a very long time. And I think he's doing, a pretty good job, and this staff is really coming around. They're all trying to figure each other out. It's not easy when you take over and you try to implement your system with guys that have been playing a certain way for a long time, and maybe certain guys don't fit. But anyways, it's kind of a little bit of a rant. I'm excited. I think he's a good coach. I think he's going to be a great coach for us, and I think you're starting to see some of the benefits of they're turning things around. They're correcting some of those mistakes. We played a solid second half, and hopefully we continue getting closer to being able to play a full 60 minutes. But it seems like that's a problem across all of college football. Is there's a lot of teams, LSU and Texas A&M included, they both of them played one or the other. It wasn't a full game. It's just hard to find enough depth to be able to put 60 minutes together where you're playing a full game of good football.
And that had been one of the things we had talked about last week as well. Alabama had a lot of tough second halves, even going back, of course, to the Georgia game, but against Vanderbilt, against South Carolina, and then certainly against Tennessee after leading 7-0, 21-0. Alabama was able to outscore Missouri, and it just didn't feel like the Tigers really had a chance even early in the third quarter.
No, they didn't. No, you just look, and you got Brady Cook, excuse me.
Brady Cook.
Cook, not Braden Cook. Brady Cook he goes out after two drives, hurts his hand. Drew Pine comes in, and Drew Pine's had a decent season at Notre Dame a few years ago, but he's definitely not Brady Cook. And Nate Noel, their star running back, is out. This is a beat-up Missouri team. They've got a lot of weapons. They're trying to find a way to get the ball to their playmakers, but it's just not. It's not very simple. And we took advantage of it. Go out there and cause 3 turnovers, and we actually. The good thing was that we were able to take those turnovers and score points off of turnovers, at least on 2 of those 3 turnovers. So that's a good sign from this offense, because it's you got to have that. Not only just creating, to find a way to put points on the board as well.
Certainly good to see. And Bama fans, if you're coming to Tuscaloosa for the Mercer game in a few weeks, make sure you join us at Vector Security Champions Lane. Best pregame fan fest in the country. The live music will start at 9 a.m., followed by our pregame radio broadcast on stage at 10 a.m. We'll also have the early games on the largest outdoor LED screens in Tuscaloosa, plus autograph signings, food trucks, and, of course, ice-cold beer in Legends Lounge, where there's never a cover charge. Visit championslane.com each week for more details. Again, we invite your phone calls. Give us a call at 877-202-BAMA. This is the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
But quick outs to a guy who can run the heck out of it as they hand it off this time to another guy who can run the heck out of it. That's going to be Justice Haynes getting inside the 30, inside the 20, and down to the 15-yard line. Justice Haynes, a great run, breaking tackles, finding open room, and getting 29 yards on the carry.
He also had a carry for 35 yards in that ball game. Fine performance by Justice Haynes. If you want to be a part of tonight's Crimson Tide Rewind show, you can also submit your questions to us online on the Alabama Media Group Twitter line at UA_CTSN. Brought to you by AL.com, your source for SEC sports. And Cory, not only fans wanting to see a shutout, they also want to see Alabama run the football, and we certainly saw that on Saturday with 271 combined rushing yards.
Yeah, I thought Justice Haynes and Jan Miller, this was easily one of their best performances, not just in terms of their stats, but the way that they ran the football, especially that 35-yard run that you mentioned towards the end, about 11 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, lowering the shoulder and delivering the big hit. It was great to see. That was like, it kind of reminded me of old school Alabama, the physicality that we played with, and that starts up front. And I also think that, Tyler Booker, Parker Brailsford, you got to give a lot of credit to those guys up front, the way that they were moving the line of scrimmage. When I was watching that game, it didn't seem like so far this season when it was obviously running plays, the goal for those guys up front is to move the line of scrimmage in a positive direction. And it seemed like we were doing that a lot on Saturday and creating some lanes for those guys to run through. But those guys are a dynamic duo in terms of their physicality, but also their vision. Both of those guys were able to find holes that were opening up for them, and they are both shifty and can run outside, can run inside. It was good to see those guys start to click a little bit and see them start to come together in terms of that running game. And we're going to have it. Last week was one where we really needed that running game at the end of the Tennessee game. We weren't able to get much going and end up losing that ball game. And this time we dominate up front, establish the run, opens up a lot of opportunities for Jalen Milroe. We don't have to rely just on his legs alone. Those are two good backs that can really carry this football team in this offense.
The offensive line did a really good job, and then it seemed like Alabama was really creative as well with the tight ends in the blocking schemes that we saw more Denny Lewis than we've seen all season long. Just a lot of different looks by the tight ends trying to help that running game.
Yeah, when I was there, we had two Nick Walker and Travis McCall were those guys that were just like extensions of those offensive line. Both of those big guys that love to get in there and block. They weren't just pass-catching tight ends, and it seems like we're finding some of those tight ends that can go out there and hold their own. You know, with today's tight ends being guys that like to split off the line, they don't like to be attached at the very end and get involved in that blocking game. These two guys, you know, all of our tight ends, when they get in there, they get after it in the run game as well. And that's what you need, because you don't want to have opposing teams knowing when, hey, this tight end's in, you know, you can expect this passing form. You know, it's going to be pass, it's going to be run. Don't define it. Be able to play both. And they're rewarded as well in the passing game. I feel like we're getting them involved in the passing game as well. A lot of that probably has to do with the fact that they're out there giving effort in the run game. And Kendrick Law is another example, a guy that we've missed through injury throughout the season. But a lot of these runs that we're seeing happen downfield, he's engaged and he's blocking his tail off, opening up some opportunities for these running backs to get in the end zone as well. So that's a Julio Jones mantra. He was a guy that had all the intangibles. He was one of the best wide receivers to ever play, but you never saw him loafing when it was his opportunity to go downfield and block some of these DBs and just pancake some folks. So it's the mentality of a team that we're finally starting to see kind of come together of, let's go deliver these blows. Let's go take the fight to these opposing team. And it starts at it's every position. It's not just the guys that are up front. It's the tight ends. It's the wide receivers. It's everybody. And it just kind of permeates throughout the entire offense when you see those guys out there given the type of effort that they're given and blocking people through the whistle.
You mentioned Julio Jones. I was curious about this, and maybe it's better for another segment. I'll ask it here anyway. His position coach, early days in Tuscaloosa, Curt Cignetti.
Yeah.
How about the job he's doing in Indiana?
Man, this is what he's done and the way he's been able to construct his roster. This is a perfect example of what the transfer portal can do for a team. Is you bring 25 guys over from JMU. Curt Cignetti's, and this is a good football team. A lot of people were discounting them as just kind of front runners, but after what we saw this past weekend, what they're able to do, the points that they're putting up, this is a quality football team. Their quarterback goes down, and they've got a backup that comes in and does a pretty good job. And I can't remember how many points they put up. Was it 59? I mean, it's unbelievable what they've been able to do this season. They've got a tough test this weekend against Michigan State. It's not going to be an easy game because they're playing some good football in East Lansing after a few years of having some down years. But I think Indiana's got a really good shot at making this college football playoff, sitting there undefeated. The points that I don't know if anybody is expecting this. You look across the board, everybody, they haven't trailed a single minute this season. It's pretty impressive for any college football team. I don't care who you've played, whatever. You have not trailed a single minute in the entire season. You're sitting at, 7-0 or 8-0. Curt Cignetti doing a phenomenal job. A guy that was probably, you didn't hear a ton from him when you were on the practice field when he was in Tuscaloosa. He kind of just went out there and coached his receivers. There was plenty of personalities on the offensive side of the ball. And the job that he's done at JMU and now at Indiana got them back in a relevant situation, not on the basketball court. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, everyone wants to talk about Kirby Smart, Dan Lanning. We need to talk about Curt Cignetti, part of the Saban coaching tree.
Google me.
Really well.
Google me. That was his quote, wasn't it?
I win. Google me.
I win. Google me.
He certainly is. And the Crimson Tide won this past week again, 34-0, the final score against Mizzou. You know, we're at Baumhower's Victory Grille tonight. It's ready for football, fun, great food, and your big game headquarters all season long, especially tonight. We're about to have Game 3 of the World Series. Monday Night Football. You have a NHL, NBA regular seasons have started, so Baumhower's with all the televisions, more than 60 all dialed to your favorite team's games. You'll never miss a play of the action. If you're going to the big game, make sure you visit your local Baumhower's before or after for legendary fun, legendary food, and legendary celebrations. Back with more in a moment. This is the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
Tight left side, one wide right. Straight handoff. And Justice lowers his head, runs over a man. Inside the 20, 15, 10-5. Touchdown, Alabama. Woo, man, Justice came down hard on the Missouri defense there. Running over a man and then running past the rest. 35 yards for the Alabama touchdown.
Again, tonight you can submit your questions to us via the Alabama Media Group Twitter line at UA_CTSN, brought to you by AL.com, your source for SEC sports. That last highlight we just heard for Justice Haynes, maybe it's a sign of today's college football, Cory. I was almost worried in the moment he was going to get called for offensive targeting. It was such a hard hit that he delivered. Luckily, no flag, and it was a great Alabama touchdown.
Man, I can't emphasize enough what a play like that does for a team. Like, even not throughout this game, beyond this game, to see your guys kind of go out there and play like that and have something, that type of play, it just elevates everybody's intensity. It's, sometimes you get caught. It's a long season. You're tired. You're kind of going through the motions, and then you see something like that happens. It just provides this juice, this extra energy level that your team sometimes needs, and hopefully it continues to carry on. Now we got this bye week. We got a lot of guys that are dinged up. We need to get some guys healthy, but I can tell you what, if you go down to Baton Rouge and you have something like that happen on that field, you want to talk about ramping up the sideline for Alabama and being ready to play. That's definitely one way to find everybody's energy level just get elevated immediately.
How much of an advantage during your time was having that bye week before LSU, especially when you had to go on the road?
Yeah, sometimes it could be a positive, and sometimes it's a negative, especially when you come off of you've got games like we just had where there were a lot of positive things. You've got good momentum with your football team. Things are starting to click a little bit. You kind of want to continue to play. But on the other side, you definitely need some rest. You need some guys to get healthy if you want to compete, especially down this stretch that we've got going here. And we talked about earlier, you've got to win every single ball game that you've got left on the schedule if you want to have any hopes of finding your way into the 12-team playoff. Sometimes it can be both positive. It just depends on how this team handles it. If you're just like going through this week and you're just looking towards the weekend where you don't have to practice and you can watch football and you're not really engaged in what you're doing, because this week of practice is you're starting to prepare for the last 3 games that you have on your schedule, not just the next one. And so you've got to be kind of glued in a little bit, because there's going to be things that you only have so much time during the week of preparation to see a lot of things. So this week is used to really not only start preparing for LSU, but to get ready for what you're going to see down the road through the rest of the season. And if you're wasting these reps, it can be detrimental, because then when it comes up for whoever we've got next on the schedule after LSU, you're having to repeat everything. You're wasting kind of time. And so the biggest thing is it might not be as physical of a week, but you've got to have the mental reps when you're out there at practice, and then also take the time to really be in the training room, go see Jeff Allen, get in there and try to heal up as much as you possibly can. It's a long season. We've still got some tough games left to go. So take advantage of it as much as you possibly can.
Yeah, the Crimson Tide still the road trip, of course, to LSU. Home for the Mercer game after that, and then back on the road to take on an Oklahoma team that's had an interesting first year in the SEC, and then, of course, a team that just picked up its first SEC win, Auburn.
Yeah, looking at what Auburn did this past weekend against a tough, Kentucky team, especially at their place at night. That's not an easy place to win. I think Kentucky's had they had higher expectations for this season than they've seen so far, but Auburn's finding a running game, and Jarquez Hunter going out there and rushing for over 200 yards on his own. And they're really having a hard time with the quarterback situation, finding guys that are not going to turn it over. But the last thing you want to do is catch Auburn at the end of the year when they're starting to click a little bit. And, they get that first win in conference, and they're carrying a little bit of confidence coming into the end of the season. And let me tell you something. if Auburn has anything to play for, not anything to play for, except for, they know that if we beat LSU, beat Mercer, beat Oklahoma, we got that Auburn game, and it matters if we're going to play into the playoffs. Just buckle up. That's going to be a heck of a test for this team, and hopefully we're prepared for it.
November is coming up for the Alabama Crimson Tide. We'll keep talking about it tonight here on Crimson Tide Rewind. It's presented by the Alabama Department of Public Health, who reminds Alabama, don't wait, vaccinate. This is the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
Tigers get to the line of scrimmage, pistol formation. Pine hands it off. They run left side. They don't get in. They didn't get in. Bama's defense stops them. We've had bigger, more memorable, more important goal line stands. But for this Alabama Crimson Tide team, oh, Damian Square, this one was indeed huge.
That was the highlight I referenced earlier, Damian Square yelling goose egg, and I couldn't tell. He probably was in the end zone celebrating as he was doing
No doubt
that.
he was on the field, for sure.
Very, very excited Damian Square. Part of our coverage, of course, each and every week here on the Crimson Tide Sports Network. This season, make sure you stay cool when you purchase a limited edition Alabama Yeti. Custom Yeti cups only available at Champions Lane before home games. Visit championslane.com today to learn how to purchase yours. Elevate your game day with Yeti. And we have the great design of the 4 + 2 = 6 with Ryan Williams and his silhouette on the Crimson Yeti Cup. That was a huge hit this past week at Vector Security Champions Lane. So the Crimson Tide pick up the victory against Missouri. Again, 34-0 is the final score. We mentioned the next opponent for the Crimson Tide, the LSU Tigers. They took on Texas A&M this past week, and a winner you knew would be in the driver's seat of the SEC race at undefeated. And it turns out to be Texas A&M, a team that we had not talked very much about, especially after they lost week 1 against Notre Dame. And it's also the first year of Coach Elko as the head coach. You never know what to expect in a coach's first year.
Yeah, you definitely don't know what to expect. And Mike Elko, with the guy that came over from Notre Dame from offensive coordinator to head coach at Duke, and what he was able to do at Duke, and then Texas A&M wrote a pretty big check to get rid of their former coach and to bring in Mike Elko. And what he's able to do so far with this team, they're impressive. I mean, their schedule is favorable for them to really, have a pretty good shot at making the 12-team playoff. And maybe it's, I heard it said earlier today, maybe one of the best checks that's ever been written by that university is to change these coaches out. I don't know. It's this is a team that has 2 different quarterbacks, and I think if Missouri had the same situation where Brady Cook goes out and you get somebody that looks a little bit different, Pine looks a lot like Brady Cook or tries to be. He's not really a mobile quarterback, doesn't use his legs, but Texas A&M's kind of got a 2-headed monster, and you never know who's going to run out there for that team. One guy, they're both very different in terms of their playing style. It's hard to prepare for opposing teams, but yeah, who would have thought? First year under new head coach Mike Elko, after they've already lost the game early to a Notre Dame team that's, they're okay. They're doing okay. They're not. I don't think they're Notre Dame's of the years we've seen in the past, but they seem to be clicking at just the right moment. They're playing good football.
I will tell the Aggies, beware Willie B. Williams-Brice Stadium at night. A South Carolina team that we saw firsthand is very good.
Yeah, this is a tough spot. I mean, you coming off the big LSU win, you had to fight in the second half to find a way to win that ball game. Now you got to go on the road to Williams-Brice. My first SEC game was at Williams-Brice, and I can tell you it is loud. It is a tough stadium to play in. And South Carolina, ignore their record. This is a good South Carolina team. We talked about it after that game. These are 2 of the best defensive ends that you've got in college football, not just in the SEC, but they've got a lot of talent over there, and they're going to be a tough test. I think they're going to be ready for – obviously, this is an elevated game. You got it at home. Got an opportunity to play a good Texas A&M team. You better be ready to go.
Certainly do. The other notable matchups, pretty light slate around the SEC coming up this week. Auburn will be hosting Vanderbilt. Of course, Florida, Georgia down in Jacksonville. And then also at night, Kentucky at Tennessee.
Yeah, this is, that cocktail party. Hopefully, you would think that Georgia is going to be ready to go. But that Florida team, I tell you what, so far this season, as much negative press as they were getting earlier against Billy Napier earlier this season, they've played some pretty good football here as of late. I don't know what the plan is with Napier and Florida in the future, but so far he's still there. He's coaching up this team, and they could give Georgia a run for their money. Georgia coming off, I think it was a bye week last week as well. So, this is get ready for November, because after this, across college football, especially in conference, we've got a lot of games, and you look across the board, there's probably 25 teams that are out there that are probably vying for these 12 spots. And it's going to be a race, because there's a lot of good football games left to be played in November that are going to determine what it looks like at the end of the postseason. But this weekend, Kentucky, Tennessee. Also, it's going to be a tricky game. Kentucky coming off a loss. See how they respond when you've got one of your biggest rivals at night in Knoxville as well.
So the Crimson Tide, no game this week, but then after that against LSU, starting the month of November. We'll talk more about that when we return. You're listening to Crimson Tide Rewind, live from Baumhower's Victory Grille in Vestavia Hills. This is the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield. Time to take a look at the prescription for success. It's presented by Payless Drugs, your locally owned family pharmacy. 4 locations here in Birmingham. Payless can handle your prescriptions, over-the-counter solutions, and home delivery. Payless at mynewpharmacy.com. One programming note, we will not have this show coming up next week on Monday, because we are going to be very busy at Coleman Coliseum with a women's and men's basketball doubleheader. It'll be opening night for Nate Oates and the men's team, Christy Curry and the women's team. Also, best of luck to the men's basketball team taking on Memphis tonight in a charity exhibition being played in Huntsville. So with that in mind, Cory, we won't get to talk to you again until after the LSU game. Just thinking about the LSU Tigers, a team that really offensively is very pass happy. They don't have much balance. How does Alabama trying to slow down Garrett Nussmeier in this LSU offense?
Well, I think you got to watch this tape from this past weekend against Texas A&M, and the biggest thing is LSU came out in the first half and looked really strong, looked like they had that game in hand. Mike Elko and that defensive staff went into halftime, made some serious adjustments, and Garrett Nussmeier looked like he was a deer in the headlights in that second half. He did not know what was coming at him. He did not look like he was comfortable as much as he did in that first half. So I think the biggest thing for us is we got to find a way to get some pressure, give him some looks that he's not expecting, try to confuse him as much as possible. I think you're going to be able to create turnovers. LT Overton is a guy that's been really playing well for us this season, especially coming off the edge, creating pressures. That defensive front in the middle has really been able to push some pocket here lately. You got to get him off his game and give him some looks that he's not expecting. And I think that's going to bode well for us. I think, Kane Womack and this defense starting to come together, bringing some different packages. You can't just line up and play against this LSU offense. You've got to give them different looks, shift some things around, and try to surprise them. And, the adjustments, it seems to be improving that we're making in these ball games, and it might require that for us against LSU. Hopefully we're able to come out there and shut them down early, but be prepared to change things up if we need to.
And how about communicating on the road as well? How much will the Tennessee game even help getting ready for this game, knowing what kind of environment you're stepping into? That
Knoxville environment was absolutely incredible. So, for the defense, it's pretty easy. I always, playing road games as a defensive guy was simple. The crowd was always quiet. You didn't hear much from them. You could go out there and communicate pretty easily. But from an offensive standpoint, you've got to have all these different silent counts. These, trying to go out there and clap your hands, and you've got to be super focused on what's happening and be ready to go. Be ready to go no matter what. I mean, it's just it's a different world. It's the offense that. Sorry, my son is trying to show me a magic trick.
We nearly had him on this segment. Yeah.
He was about to go on for sure on the microphone. We all know what Baton Rouge looks like at night and how loud it's going to get, especially when this game means so much. It's like you've just got to be prepared better than you possibly can be and make sure that you're on the same page with everybody. Or these penalties that we've had that have shot ourselves in the foot that can really hurt yourself, you cannot afford to have those in this type of a game. You've got to be able to, hit the throws that you're supposed to and not give LSU any opportunities more than they're already going to have as the game goes on.
Hard to believe we're going to have Halloween, a presidential election, the start of basketball season in between Alabama and LSU and where we are tonight.
It's going to be a busy week for sure.
It certainly will be, but again, that's coming up on Saturday, November 9th. Our radio airtime will be 3:30 to kick off at 6:30 from down in Baton Rouge. We'll be back with one final segment of Crimson Tide Rewind, the show tonight presented by the Alabama Department of Public Health, reminding Bama fans, don't wait, vaccinate. This is the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield. What's on tap next for Bama is brought to you by Bud Light. Bud Light, proud sponsor of Alabama Athletics, easy to drink and easy to enjoy. Well, as we mentioned, we're going to have the LSU game coming up on Saturday, November 9th. But before that, we will have a new edition of Hey Coach and the Kalen DeBoer Show coming up on Wednesday from Baumhower's in Tuscaloosa. Coach DeBoer will not be in person. He will be calling in and talking with Chris Stewart coming up on Wednesday night. Again, that show begins at 6 p.m. We will have Crimson Drive this week starting at 2 o'clock on Thursday, just Thursday edition of Crimson Drive, really focused on basketball, men's and women's basketball. We'll talk on Crimson Drive coming up Thursday, and then of course we'll have men's and women's basketball doubleheader next Monday. Hey Coach on the Kalen DeBoer Show, and everything really leading us up to that 3:30 airtime for Alabama against LSU. Always a special matchup, and now this year with the expanded college football playoff, both teams with 2 losses, there is a playoff spot essentially on the line.
Yeah, absolutely. You just can't afford to lose one more, and if you do, you're just sitting there around praying that there's all kinds of chaos that happens. And I think there possibly could be. The way this college football season has kind of played out is there's definitely room for some carnage in college football. These top teams that have kind of held the top spots, everybody seems to be falling. We're trying to figure out who the best team is, and it's like you're looking at Indiana right now. It's got the best record, but are they the best college football team? Everybody's vying for an opportunity to play in this college football playoff. And this is going to be a tough test for playing on the road against LSU is never easy. So there's definitely some things that we've got to improve on. Third down from this offense has got to improve. I think we had not a lot of third down conversions. That's 2 weeks in a row where our numbers didn't look very good. We've got to be able to find a way to stay on the field and keep drives alive and end up putting some points on the board.
And even as good as the Georgia game was, especially in that first half, you still get the feeling we haven't seen the best football yet for this group.
Oh, there's no doubt. Ever since that first half of the Georgia game, it seems like we've just kind of been sliding a little bit. And I think a lot of it has to do with some injuries, some guys getting banged up. We've got to protect Jalen Milroe. He keeps getting hit a decent amount. Even in this past weekend against Missouri, he's taking some shots. Protecting, allowing the rush off the edge seems to be an issue for us right now. We've got to find a way to either get the ball out with some quick game, try to slow these edge rushers down, because LSU, they're just known for having these guys that are able to get after the quarterback. That's just one of their specialties. That's going to be something we've got to continue to improve on. But yeah, there's a lot to continue to work on. This is going to be a tough test. We're really going to find out what this team's about, especially in this spot. This is a good LSU team that we're going to be facing.
Well, Cory, enjoy the bye week. We look forward to seeing you after LSU for this show, and we'll be catching up on game day. Just all the best. Roll Tide.
Hey, looking forward to it. Roll Tide.
That's Cory Reamer. I'm Roger Hoover, and if you missed any portion of tonight's show, always catch it on demand on our Alabama Insider podcast. Download and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. That does it for Crimson Tide Rewind, presented by the Alabama Department of Public Health, live from Baumhower's Victory Grille in Vestavia Hills. For Austin Wolkin, Todd Robbins, Cory Reamer, I'm Roger Hoover.
You've been listening to Crimson Tide Rewind.